Nā kai kaunihera, nā kai mahi, nā mema o te iwi whānui, me nā mema o te perehi. Nā mai ki tau tātou hui kaunihera, whakamutanga mo te mo C22-7. Councillors, staff, members of the public and members of the press, welcome to our last council meeting for this triennium C22-7, sorry. I mua te haere whakamua, ka tono a hao kia Chris kia whakatū werehia te mātou hui ki te tahi karakia. Before going any further, I'll ask Chris to open our meeting with a karakia.
Tēnā tātou te whare. Tēnā hoki koe te koromātua nau I tukuna te wahanga ki au, a te honore te whakatū whera tō tātou hui I runga I te karakia. Thank you, Your Worship, for allowing the honour of opening this last council hui of the triennium with karakia no reira kei noi tātou. Tēnei te Māori ka piki ake ki te rangi e tūnei. He rangi atua, he rangi tipua, he rangi tawhito. Kia whiti ko te mātauranga. Kia tau ko te māramatanga. Whaia kia tata, puritia kia mau, haumi e, hui e, tā ki e. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, Chris, and thanks for that. Council, is just a reminder that although we're all here, we're still being Zoom today. So mute when you're not speaking, and if you are speaking, please use a microphone. And just remind you, anything you say will be taken down and could be held against you if you get out of line. We have no apologies. We have no late items. I doubt we have any declarations of interest, but I have to ask the question anyhow. Conflict, right, thank you. We have no public excluded items and we've had no request for a public forum. So we move straight to the business of the meeting, and that's on page 7, council and committee minutes for receipt. Can I have a move and a seconder, please? Councillor Dean, Councillor Daly. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. I declare that carried. We now move to page 18, which is information for receipt, or as we did at the end of last triennium, it is the time for valedictories. So for those councillors who will not be returning or have chosen to retire, this is your time. So we'll go through in alphabetical order. Mark Dean, if you'd like to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's gone all green. Thank you. It's quite an emotional sort of time to be leaving council after 6 years. First of all, I'd like to give thanks. I'd like to thank the Mayor, fellow councillors and staff for an incredibly interesting 6 years. It started off as a very steep learning curve, and I'm still learning. I'd like to acknowledge the great team that I've had the honour to be part of. You've been an incredible team to work with. I'd like to acknowledge Mayor Gary for his leadership. This council has achieved a level of respect that's largely due to your efforts, Gary. I wish you well in the future in your retirement and any endeavours you may pursue. And I'm sure you're not going to sit at home and just watch out at that lovely view, but you'll be doing other things. Fellow councillors, you've been great teammates. We've certainly had some differing views, but we all have got on really well. And I think that's been marvellous. It's been great to be part of a team. To the staff, thank you for your assistance and thank you for your first-rate reports. They've been most useful in understanding what we've got to discuss and the decisions we've had to come to. I've been proud of what this excellent team has achieved over the years. However, there's been some disappointments. I've been disappointed at the time it's taken to get things done, but I've been told that that's par for local government, and still a disappointment. I've also been disappointed that I couldn't have done more for what I term the southern districts of the Kaimai ward, Ohauiti, Oropi, Pies Pa, Omanua and Kaimai. However, every meeting has been very interesting and I'm disappointed that I'm going to miss out on that in the future. There's always something that's been interesting. And I'm especially disappointed that I'm not going to be here to be part of the district plan review, which I think is one of the most significant things that you're going to be doing in the coming term. There's been some great achievements. The highlight, I feel, was the Panipani Point work that we did to return Panipani Point to the iwi. Another highlight was the waste management system that we put in place. I think that has done an awful lot for our environmental issues in this district. I'm proud of the debt reduction that council has achieved over the time I've been here. I was proud of the fact that right early in the piece, I think it was near 5 years ago, we set in place a policy for sea level rise. The development in Omokoroa has been great, especially putting in place and achieving the libraries at Katikati and the service centre there and the library at Omokoroa, and now we've done the library at Waihi Beach. I'm proud of the assistance we've given iwi with the various maraes and the work we've done to improve sewage system and water supply. Locally in my area, we achieved the Oropi car park getting sealed. The cemetery there has been improved with a sealed pathway, and I think that's been great. I was put on 2 committees outside of council by the mayor. One was the Tauranga Moana Harbour Advisory Group, and I've gone to that, and that's been absolutely fascinating and interesting, working with regional council, city council and iwi representatives, all dealing with the issues around Tauranga Moana. The mayor also placed me on EnviroHub right back 6 years ago, and I have remained as a trustee on EnviroHub for all the time since and will continue to do so. In the future, I urge you all of those of you that return to pay careful consideration to the issues which will affect our district. And I see these as rural urbanisation, that's a district plan thing, climate change, we're already warned by NIWA that this summer is going to be even hotter, misinformation, and I think this is possibly one of the biggest issues that we have, is misinformation being used erroneously to influence decisions that this council will make. The Kaimai ward representation needs to be looked at carefully. The Kaimai ward is split by the city, and everything seems to people in the southern part to be Omokoroa and Te Puna centred, and that needs to be addressed, as does city expansion. And I would suggest we seriously look eventually at amalgamation. In conclusion, I'll miss the interaction with this team and all the interesting topics that come up. I plan to spend some more time sailing, volunteering. I've been doing some work already with the House of Science. There's a number of environmental trusts I'm involved in. We're planning to travel, and there'll be a project or 2 that I'll be involved with. Thank you.
Thank you. Monique Gray, you're next in the alphabetical order, so the floor is yours.
So I've called this one until next time, because until next time, unlike many of you, I can retire for 10 or 20 years and still be one of the youngest at the table. I don't think I am done for good. I'm just taking this time to put my family and my health first. While this felt like a trump card, being the youngest councillor ever, still at times I felt like I was the naughty kid in the corner. And coming from an operations to governance role has been a sharp lesson at times of trying to get things done. However, professionally, this has allowed me to develop a slightly thicker skin. I still take the award for the most tears shed in chambers and taking things personally, but that is because for me, standing as a councillor was an emotional driven position. Our district deserves better, and it still does. The future generation has always been at the forefront of my decisions and having a voice for those who have not been given one. It has its plus sides, not being recognised when you go out and hiding when things get tough, except for the main street in Te Puke, and always coming up with quirky ways after being asked which department I work for in council. Even after several meetings and occasions of meeting commissioners, chairs and CEOs on different occasions, this face seems very easy to forget. This term has been like no other. Not only have we had natural disasters thrown into a world of COVID, more recently the passing of our Queen, and then there was Councillor Marsh, who was somehow figured out to unmute himself. Councillor Murray's been learnt to turn on the camera, and many of us finding the microphone so that everyone online were able to hear us. Technology and access to the council is at an all-time high with so much more to do. I hope that the changes we have made and the highlights of this term for me will still sit as a legacy for a little. The partial speed review of which many of you were not supportive when it was approached, but I managed to sway the vote to progress this and grateful that it also included the establishment of signs to limit speeds outside of some of our most important schools. The return of Pani Pani Pirako was a momentous movement in kaupapa to not only be proud of, but be a part of. Increasing the alcohol-free zone of Te Puke because our whole community mattered. The Treaty of Waitangi up on the walls in chambers will stay in my heart for a very long time. The survival of the seal extension meetings, I think everybody deserves a medal. Personally, finding my whakapapa has meant a lot, not only to me, but my whole whānau and for generations to come. This has also meant that I could stand true for our people and all people. I also hope that my advocacy for disability and access within our communities will stay forefront. Establishing footpaths and access to alleyways, one of the infrastructural moves we made as a community board, which has such flow-on effect for access in our community. This term has seen a lot of changes, upgrades to technology, infrastructure. A couple of you have upgraded houses and even husbands. I've got 3 out of 4 of those. I'll let you figure out which ones. My children will now take a long earned rest from public events, of which they have learned to be on their best behaviour and pretend to look interested. My partner Reese my fiance Reese will be released to have my phone go quiet for a little bit and settle into family life in Tokoroa. So lastly, I just want to thank you all. A mixed bag of lollies. You never know what you're going to pull out, which is going to leave a sour taste. And who will raise their hand when question time is almost done? Don, all the milkshakes are yours, but you still have to share them with my council bestie Anne, who I will miss the most. Oh. Gary, thank you for understanding that time with my boys was needed and that they must come first at all times. Give me the opportunities to be able to develop and gain skills that will be useful in the future. Thank you for your mentorship and John for being my sounding board. I can't forget my community board. Richard, as a friend and a colleague, it has been a pleasure. Let's try not to cry. I will miss our conversations of solving all the world problems on our drive over. And no matter what happens in elections, please, all of you stay true to what matters most. He aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Thank you.
Thanks, Malik. We now move to the elder statesman, Kevin Marsh.
Push the face.
So, yeah,
You don't need it, you're loud enough.
I don't need it anyway. Where do I start? Standing in today it's quite overwhelming actually. And I can see that Mayor Webber's probably in the same position.
Okay.
Coming to council, when I started, the ratepayers out there said that you need to stand for council because the ratepayers are not listened to. The council staff are running this place. And that was what was said out there at that stage. And probably they still say it now. But when you get in here and you work with the council staff, oh Jesus, now. When you work with council staff, you realise the difference. So that's when I started. The debates in here, when we started, they were good. We had Glenn Snowgrove and Graham Weld as the mayor. And that was a really good time. The time that we spent with those guys, it was different to what it is now. I can honestly say that. We felt that we were really, when we came in, it was really, you know, you were part of the team. And it's taken a little while to sort of, I think, for the new councils to feel that in here at the moment. Whereas we had that, right, Graham Weld was a master at that, to make everyone knew that he was a big, gruff man, and most of us were frightened of him, but it was his way of doing it. And he was really good with the staff. He would walk down to the office and you'd see him walk up to every staff member and talk to them. So that was one thing that we learned to do right from the start. Where do we go from here? I've got a staff, I've had a really good relationship with staff. I think I'm looking at Aileen over there at the moment. I don't think Aileen I could have got through without you. You've been through some hard times, I know. And even I was a proper bugger at writing reports for the council MAC2 ward. And Aileen, I remember sitting in Auckland Airport one day, and Aileen rang me and she said, "Where's your report?" I said, "Holy hell, that's not good." So we sat down and we wrote that in the airport for Aileen, or Aileen was, she helped. So Aileen has been she's been really with me all the way. And to me, Aileen, thank you for that. I really appreciate what you've done. And I know that you've been through some hard times lately, but we wish you as well. I guess that's where do we go from here? The achievements, concerns and direction of council. I know this government has put one hell of a lot of pressure on this council and other councillors as well. They just keep firing things on us. I remember that they even got down to putting the strip clubs into council to work with. Well, what's this council got to do with strip clubs? But they didn't actually give us the funds to get those things through. So therefore, that's had to go on the ratepayers, a lot of that. So, you know, I only hope the new councils coming in are strong enough to fight the government to make sure that this council sticks to the core things. So, yeah, I'm not like these other people. I don't write the full thing. I just do it off the cuff. Highlights, I guess the highlights of my time here. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of people come through. I don't think there's one person in this room that has been here as long as when I started. We've had a lot of changes in staff over the last few years. So, and there are a lot of good staff going out of here, which troubles me. Usually if you have a good staff member, you hang on to them. And I know that we're a really good ground for getting the staff up to scratch, and then they say, move on. Well, I hope that ceases, because we really need the good people that we've had and we've got. It's a huge something that we have to look after. The highlights of my thing here, reduced rates. When I came in, the rates were not that high. We got up with Omakarawa, I think we got up to about $180 million. And in 2009, we said this is enough. We put the brakes on. So we were doing up to 10. I think the last time we did it, we had a 10-kilometre roading tar sealing done. And so we pulled everything back. And now I think our debt was, when I last looked, it was about 70 or 80 million. So I think that the staff have done an excellent job on that. And I only hope that, you know, I see a lot of people that are standing for council at the moment saying our debt is going to go up to about 300 million. Well, I would hope not. So the other thing, when I first came on, I remember we had one hell of a lot of helicopters working around in those days with the doing all the kiwi fruit. When the frosts came, we had to have helicopters over the top. Now they've got windmills, and the biggest thing was a great big mast standing up in the sky at Pangaroa. It was black. No one could see it, and it was a sitting accident. So I remember getting on the phone and ringing the telecom guys in Wellington, and they told me I was out of my head. They didn't even own a mast at Pangaroa, let alone they were going to do anything about it. So after a few discussions, I informed them that they'd probably end up in court if someone ran into that and died. So as you see now, it's got lights on it. It didn't take them long to get up and put lights on that thing. So I think that was something that I achieved myself. And learning about the district, I've learned a hell of a lot about the district in my time. And I guess that the older you get, you still keep learning, and which is something that I really, you know, I've worked for a lot of organisations. I've worked with the Marais, the Ratepayers Association, the community boards, the schools, the hall committees, the drainage boards, the emergency services, Coast Guard, all those people. I've spent one hell of a lot of time with those people. I do it behind the back of the scenes. I don't come out and publicise where I've been ever. I just do it, and I always have done. Leaving this place, yeah, it's going to be different. I can tell you, 21 years is one hell of a long time, and I don't think there's too many others spent that time in this office. I've seen it change where we used to start over there. We had a building over there before this one was built, where we used to, I think Graham Weld and those guys, they had a hot cooked lunch for them. And after lunch, they just came back and half of them went to sleep. So that was changed. And we had the lunches like we had a lot of sandwiches and things and those days. So yeah, I guess that things have changed a hell of a lot, and now we look after all the people independently out there in that room. There's only one thing that I really, if I wasn't here, I'd have another word for it. But the Te Puke Main Street, I worked hell of a hard to try and get that main street. The congestion in there is absolutely appalling. Any day, but in particular in the kiwi fruit season, that is abysmal. And I really mean that needs to be sorted out. And I don't think a bypass is going to work there, because it ain't going to be. We're not going to get the money to do that bypass. So somehow we've got to work that out. And it was 2 lanes before, And I don't see why we had never had the congestion through. We have the same amount of cars going through there. We've got them going through now. I think there's 21,000 cars a day going through there now. So, but I would like to just, before I do forget, is the staff that I've worked with, Gary Ellis, I have to acknowledge Gary. Gary has always been there for me. If I want something done, I can ring Gary at any time of the day or night, and he's always there, and he's always helped me to get what I've done. He was with me when I was chairman of operations, and his secretary, Cherie, I've got to acknowledge her as well, because she was a fantastic lady to me to help me through. And I needed that help, and they were prepared to give it to me. I guess now it comes to the end. I come to Andrea. Andrea to me is, yeah, I guess she's been there the whole time for me. It's been, for me, I was a one-man farmer when I started, and it was hard. We started off, I think I got something like, I don't know, 12,000 bucks. And I think we got 12 cents for mileage. And I just said to them, I'm going to ride a bloody horse along here, and I'm going to tie it up at the front door. And I'd arranged to get a horse float and a horse, and I was going to do it. But the mileage changed after that. And but even so, running a farm and being in it, anyone that thinks they're going to come in here and it's a sweet job has got a different thing coming, as Gary knows. It's not beer and skittles, I can tell you that. And for you to come in here, I've heard that these old grey-headed old fellas in here at the moment, and that's been put out, it was circulated that we were old and stale. I look around, I think this council that's here is pretty good, diverse council. You know, we've got all ages, and I think, and I look at the new ones coming in that are standing, I think you're going to get no different. They're either bald, they're grey, or they're dyeing their hair. So you're going to end up no different to what it is now. But I'd like to go back to Andrea. Without Andrea, I don't think I could have done this job. Well, I know I couldn't. Andrea's helped me in every way. And my kids, I've got 3 really good children, and they've all been here to come back and help us when we need them. So, and they've all got good jobs, but they've always come home to help Andrea out and myself when we need, when I need to be at council. So with that, Andrea, here. Thank you.
Kevin, I'm not leaving, but I can't let 21 years walk out the door without acknowledging the day that 2 very frightened staff members came running through those doors right behind you. And they said there was a guy out there with a fence post or a signpost or whatever it is, and he's smashing doors. And truly, the first guy out of a seat, and he couldn't get out there fast enough, was Kevin Marsh, which I thought was pretty brave or stupid, and I'll leave that out. But well done, Kevin, that day. That just showed what you were really made of. So well done, mate.
Thank you. Well, that day was, yeah, that guy needed help. He really did. And so I knew that someone needed to help him. So I went out there, we smashed all the counter up, and he had a big, everyone was screaming at me to stay inside, but I went out there and he actually, I calmed him down, and yeah, I thought it was worth it. But I didn't get killed.
Thanks, Don. Well, I suppose it moves to myself as the last retiring, and also in alphabetical order, Weber comes last. Koi te kumara e korora ana mo tano ake reka. e hara taku toa I te toa takatahi anare he toa takatini. The Coomera does not brag about its own success. And my success is not mine alone. It is this team's alone, together. And when I say this team, it is those seated right around here and those who are not with us. And I suppose looking at 12 years in council and a couple on the community board, and I still don't know how I got on the community board because I never went through an election, but I was there. The positives I think that I've seen is the understanding of the true and accurate history of our district. We, I think, have illuminated that, so people are a lot more understanding of what really makes up our district and how we got here, going back to those terrible days of the 1800s through to about 1930. I think I've also tried, and thanks very much, Chris, for your Te Reo's advice, to bring a smattering of Te Reo into this council. We've got past Te Wiki o Te Reo, and I think we've lifted, and I go back to 2012, I suppose my most disappointing day in local government in the Bay of Plenty was when the Tauranga Moana Iwi Collective signed their agreement at Pukehenehena. And I went along because I thought it was quite a momentous day in the history of our district. And to find, after we'd gone through the porphyry, that I had to sit alongside the Governor General on the pie, because no other councillor, no other mayor, no other MP turned up to the signing of that document. I felt that we, as a district, had no idea at all of the history. So I think hopefully I brought that to the fore. The other thing, that's the positives. I think we've done some great things in this council. I think we've worked reasonably well as a team. I go back to my working career where I always had a desire that I would be involved in high performing teams. The inevitable tension of democracy makes that a bit of a stretch because we all come with our own views of the world. When you're in a corporate or a cooperative thing, where looking after the shareholders or making sure that the business survives and is viable, you've got some different tensions. But I think in the main, as a collective, in the 12 years that I have worked together, and the collective, I talk about staff and councillors, we have sort of gelled. It is a dreamer who thinks you're going to win everything unanimously. And I have never been a dreamer. I've been a pragmatist and accepting that those robust debates we've had, and Kevin, you've made that point very clear. We can have some robust debates in here, but when we go out of the room, we're back to a bunch of people who need to respect each other. And I think it's been great to be part of that organisation. Carolyn, I see you scowl now and again when I move things that I shouldn't move. But hopefully in the next training, you get a mayor that's a bit more professional. In closing, I must thank staff. It's been referred to here. The clarity of reporting that I see now compared to those 300 and 400 page, the chief executive of the day must have thought that staff were paid by the word. We've changed that around, and I think we are getting really good evidence and hard information to make decisions. So the decision making is generally been relatively easy. The final thing that I'd like to say is to the departing councillors, thank you very much for your service. And thank you, as Kevin said, to the partners. They do a hell of a lot behind the scenes, and I don't think the general public understand what a partner of a councillor or a mayor goes through. For those of you who are brave enough to continue the fight, I wish you well. Whether you return or not, that depends on how well you campaign. and depends on the community. But for those that are going to continue the fight, I wish you well. For those who want to know what I'm going to do in my retirement, more of this. It's playing with rock and wood. It doesn't answer back. I've never had an argument. Every now and again, one of the buggers will get me and nick my finger, but I recover from that pretty quick. So I'm looking forward to at least a couple of years of that before anybody might want me to do things. I'll try and resist it for the first couple of years, but it's been a pleasure to be part of this organisation, and thank you for your support. And as you've just seen, I don't do farewells very well. And councillors, that brings us to the end of the meeting.